everyone, welcome to Hey Sis, I Need to Vent. I'm Wheaton.
And I'm Tracy.
We are so excited for you to join us today. We have an extra special guest joining us on this episode, Jane Henry, the founder of Once a Month, a wonderful organization operating in South Africa, supporting young girls and women to access sanitary products. Hey, Jane.
Hi Tracy. Hi Joe. How are you guys doing?
No, we're really good.
Not bad, girl.
Yeah, we're good. We're super excited to have you join. Jane reached out to us on Instagram saying that she really wanted to vent about period poverty. Jane is a menstrual activist and she's going to tell us what all that's about. But when she reached out, I was super excited because period poverty is something that I'm super passionate about. It's something that's so close to my heart. And I am so grateful to Jane for reaching out to us and for sort of pushing us to have this conversation, because it's a conversation that needs to be had. We need to talk about this so much. And so thank you so much, Jane. Thanks for reaching out.
Thanks for actually having me. I was having a bit of cold feet while I was sending the Instagram message to you guys to ask if I could be on this podcast. So, thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you. So, Tracy, you had a very interesting reaction to Jane's message when she initially sent it.
So initially when I saw her message, I was like, okay. She looks like a nice girl. No shade to you, Jane, but I was like, who wants to talk about periods? Really? Ugh. Okay.
I kind of understand where Tracy's coming from, and with the whole thing of periods, like who wants to talk about periods, and I think it's I don't want to say it's unfortunate, but it's a sad thing that it has kind of been passed on through from generation to generation to generation, just to kind of be silent about it.
So Jane, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to this to being a menstrual activist?
Okay, so basically I started Once a Month just as a basic random act of kindness, and I started it just by myself when I was 15, about 3 years ago. And basically Once a Month is just a nonprofit that is striving to end period poverty and menstrual stigma in South Africa through service, education, and empowerment. And so far we've been able to distribute about 3,000 sanitary pads, and we currently help about 650 women and young girls every month. So it's just a wrap of what Once a Month is. Yeah,
that's really incredible. So what brought you to starting this organization? What inspired you? What was the call to action?
I think I'm not going to say that I've always been passionate about menstruation or periods or menstrual equity and all that. I kind of had to teach myself about it, and I had to kind of become more comfortable with it and trying to realize that I have to see it as a superpower almost, you know what I mean? And I had to do research and stuff like that before I could, be more open about it and talk about it, because I knew that if I wanted to start this non-profit and if I wanted to become an activist for menstruation and menstrual equity, I needed to be more comfortable with it. And
100%. And it's exactly that. You're absolutely right, Jane, in saying that it's an education piece, because even for me, I can say that this is a topic I'm super passionate about, but I only became passionate about this maybe 3-4 years ago, when this really started being a global conversation, when people started talking about the stories of women in Nepal who are actually ostracized and literally forced to stay in a period hut because of the cultural shame attached to menstruation. So that's the thing that really made me start thinking about it, and I started looking into it a little bit more. And it's absolutely that, an education piece. You need to research and you need to get your facts to really understand the impacts that period poverty has on women.
I totally get you, and I hope that with the session that we'll have now, we can definitely educate other people about it, and also you, Tracy, so you can, get to know more about it as well. I've also been in like when you were talking about how you got to learn about it about 3 years ago. Same here also, definitely I think around the same timing, 5 years ago, something like that. And it started for me when I actually started to notice the stigma Do you know what I mean? And I started to question, why is it that whenever I'm going through this thing, which I did not ask for, I did not ask for it, there are so many kind of invisible laws put in place that I shouldn't talk about it, I shouldn't say anything about it, and people are supposed to look at me weirdly when I'm on it, you know?
Yes.
And so I think it started there. And then when I started to actually research how other people are influenced by it, and it was almost like the magnitude was greater by far. I mean, how can you tell me just because of something that's naturally happening to me, I should be in isolation from my family, I shouldn't eat certain foods, you know? And most importantly, I shouldn't, you know, participate in different activities or stuff, like especially sports. Like, it's predominantly sports where women aren't really allowed to participate in whatever sports that they love to do just because they are, you know, menstruating. And it's, you know, it's a topic that no one really wants to speak about. And I think being a menstrual activist and trying to get people in, like, to understand, like you said, educate people about the issues, just like I was educated about the issues so that I can, you know, speak up for it.
And then something that I'm really keen to do is to actually give the listeners a definition of what period poverty is, because I know we're saying it feels like it's self-explanatory, but then what is it? What is, Jane, could you give us like that definition?
Okay, cool. So period poverty is basically like not having sanitary pads or any menstrual product really to use during, you know, when you're menstruating and stuff like that during that time of the month. And it also includes like not having proper menstrual hygiene education, or like toilets and hand washing facilities, or like a waste management system in your community or in your country or whatever. So that all kind of categorizes as period poverty. Well, I think the most popular kind of definition is just not having, you know, not having when you need. That I think that's the most important that we need to kind of focus on with what period poverty is. And, you know, it affects so many people around the world, so many women around the world, and half the population are women. So, I mean, it's a lot of women that it does affect, women and young girls. So, yeah.
That's crazy, because I saw on globalcitizen.com when I was doing my research for this podcast that actually it's more than 800 million people, women, every single day who menstruate. 800 million guys.
A lot of women.
This is a lot of women.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot of blood.
It's a lot of, absolutely. It's a lot of blood. And then if you think about it, like what you say, Jen, is half the world's population are menstruating. You can think about just how many people are affected by period poverty. And I think it's important to say, like right at the top of this, that period poverty isn't exclusive to developing countries or countries that are in the global south. Definitely. It affects everybody, whether you're rich or poor.
It's a global issue.
It's a global issue. Yeah, definitely.
Wow. I mean, relating it to myself. Okay, so I have experienced period poverty, apparently. There was a time, you know, things were tough and I had to use some tissue for a day or two. So that's what you mean by period poverty?
Yeah, I think when we talk about period poverty, that does include, but also, you know, with the numbers, just so I don't forget, with the numbers that Joe said with the 800 million, what I've come to kind of realize is that because of this issue, not a lot of women speak about it, like if they are going through it. And that also covers with the shame. Just like I said, just like Tracy said, actually, where she said that she's also been in that situation and she doesn't even know if it's period poverty or not, you see. So it's because that topic isn't really driven into society to talk about. And sometimes that number can be higher, sometimes it can be less. Because obviously, thank goodness, with the organizations that have been set up around the world to combat this issue. But, you know, it's not only, like you said, it's not only fortunate people or developed people in developing world, not to experience. It's a global thing.
But then, like, something that keeps coming out as we're talking is this, I guess, stigma around period poverty and this social silencing around talking about around for women to, like, women can't even talk about it freely, and I think is a big reason why the issue has become as big as it has, because it's not something that women and just globally we've never really spoken about it. But let's just explore that for a minute. Like, why is it that we don't talk about it?
I feel the reason why we don't speak about it is because, of course, education. That's number one. People don't want to listen to it because they're not educated about it. And when they are educated about it, it's never in a positive light. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you let's say, for instance, a girl just started menstruating, right? In different households, there's a different reaction to it, and most likely it's a negative reaction to it, and it's not an educative, in a positive way kind of reaction to your first period and stuff like that. And so I feel like the biggest factor, obviously, to the stigma is education and getting the proper education.
And I think a lot of it, when it comes to menstrual stigma, it comes from how women we initially learn about periods. Like you guys, how did you guys learn about periods?
I learned about periods in school. I think in primary school, maybe grade standard 7, but there was always laughter around it and, a whole lot of embarrassment. I never really think I actually properly learned about periods and menstrual health. And I only learned about the reproductive system properly in my
20s.
Wow, 20s.
I'm going to put myself out there. I only learned last year that the urethra and the vagina are 2 different things. When I was talking about
oh my God.
I'm serious. I started looking to getting menstrual cups, and then I was like, will I be able to pee? And then my coworker was like, girl, there are 2 different holes, right? I'm like, oh, okay.
Do you know, like this is more common than you think, because I didn't well, no, I was a little bit different, guys. I thought the pee comes out of the clitoris. And it's you guys, and this is actually, I learned this in my 20s as well. Really, you can see biology was in my subject, guys. Sorry. But I genuinely thought that my pee came out of the clitoris. And guess who told me what the real, you'll never believe who told me.
A man.
My little brother. My brother. My little brother.
Oh, no.
He was like, I don't know what we were talking about. And then Kudzi was just like, no, dude, no. You've got 2 holes down there. I was like, huh? No, you got 2 holes. Go in the bathroom and get a mirror and have a look. And that's how I discovered myself. But then this is all very valid, because it just goes to show you that the education piece around the reproductive system, around women and our bodies,
it's not taken care of.
It's not taken care of. It's not being done effectively enough. It's shrouded in secrecy. It's shrouded in shame. It's shrouded in giggles. And the teacher being at the front of the room thinking, oh, I just need to teach this. Let me just get through it quickly, and not really taking time to ensure that the kids understand.
100%. That's why one of the missions of Once a Month is actually to elevate women healthcare, because we recognize that a lot of women, I don't want to say especially in Africa, but unfortunately it's a predominant issue. Women health is just not taken care of at all. No one's paying attention to it. While I was back in school, I never really learned it in depth. And it's very sad. It's sad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was really fortunate, I guess I should say, that at school, they sort of dedicated a whole day just to menstrual health and the reproductive system. Boys and girls were separated, which I thought really helped as well but then we all received the same lesson, but separate. And I think it kind of helped, because I think
that could help though.
Yeah, it minimized the giggles. We all had the exact same lessons. Girls learn about periods and contraception and the reproductive system. Boys also learn about periods, wet dreams, and whatever else happens to boys. It was a really productive day. But then what it meant for me is that I went home instilled with the knowledge about periods. But I guess my question to you, Jane, how did you learn about it?
Well, firstly, when my first menarche wasn't the greatest experience. My first period wasn't the greatest, because I remember very weirdly, my mom's response to me getting my first period was quite, I didn't know how to take it in. firstly, because she got on her knees and she started praying. I was like, what? She started praying and she was singing songs to God, and I was like, okay, so what is this thing now? Like, I was like, and at the time I was never educated about it, and so the way it was dealt with wasn't the best way. I mean, that's her special way of probably maybe celebrating it, but for other parents, they actually have parties for their children, like full-on parties for them.
Yeah, I've heard this. But was your mom, I mean, just going back to you for a sec, your mom, was she praying, but praying in jubilation and giving thanks? Or was she praying more in worry?
No, she was giving thanks to God.
I was like,
okay, because actually what it means is that my little girl can have a pee. That's what she was celebrating. I love that. Wow. I love it. Yeah, that's actually, but then did she sit you down afterwards and discuss with you?
Never did that. She only she only gave me a pack of sanitary pads, showed me how to put it on, but she never really talked me through what menstruation is. But she just said, okay, now this is what you're going to have once every month. And then she gave me like a book, I think, just to kind of track it. But she was very concerning though. Like, I remember on my so it was a school night. The next day, of course, I had to go back to school. The next day, and then I had this little bag, and it was so cute, but I had so much shame around it. I was so scared, and I didn't know what was going on because no one really taught me. And I was in the car in the morning going to school in the car. My dad was like, your mom told me what happened last night. And I was like, I don't know what happened. And then he was like, just don't let boys touch you. And also when you were talking about someone, I think Tracy or Joe said something about, now you can get pregnant.
Was
it Tracy?
Me. Yeah, no, it was me, Huizi. Yeah, definitely. I mean,
so that was something, of course, that my dad took and said to me.
And said to you,
And I didn't really get any education about it. I think it was at school, but as we talked about, school isn't really the best place to get it sometimes. But sometimes it's better from your parents because you feel more comfortable with them. And thank goodness I was in an all-girls school, so I mean it was something all the girls were going through at the time.
That makes a difference.
Yeah, but it's funny because we never ever spoke about it, which was absolutely like with each other. Do you know what I mean? Like there would be certain girls that would be outspoken about it, but then those girls would be slammed, and I would wonder why. Like I would think, okay, well, why are they being slammed about talking about this thing that I'm going through and stuff like that? And so we never really encouraged that kind of conversation. And for me, I just had to...
100%. And I think with people not wanting to talk about it and people not engaging with it, I think that all goes back to the stigma and the sort of attitudes around it. And sometimes I think, obviously, the people that you'd expect to be naturally talking about this issue are other women. But I have to say that when it comes to periods and just menstruation, women, we've been really complicit in silencing each other.
Yeah.
And that really 100%. Starts from when we start how we're educated about periods and how we communicate among ourselves. Researching into this, I found that apparently there are around 5,000 euphemisms used for the word period. There's flow, there's the rug, my reds, the curse. Me and my friends used to call it Auntie Mary between ourselves.
Wow.
Oh God, Auntie Mary's come to visit. Oh gosh, yeah. And like every single time you say it, it's like it's a negative thing, isn't it? And it's almost like it's this secret language that's developed between us women. But it's not a positive thing. It actually shows a really sad side of periods and how we think about them, because it just reinforces the idea of menstruation being something that's shameful and something that just has to be hidden.
Yeah, definitely. I get you 100%. I think talking about it in that light can be positive and it can be negative as well. Like sometimes women, they like to take it as a thing that it's between them in a way that it's in a positive way. So for instance, I had like a friend group, and when we talked about periods, we were like, we said stuff like, oh, it's finally here or something like that. And then we were like, really? And then we start to have like positive conversations about it. And we were like, I got mine like last week. Like, are we syncing? You know what I mean? And so I think that's then a positive light. But then when you start saying stuff like the curse, like it's not a curse. And when you start saying it like that, then people start to believe it, that it's a curse. And it's not. Like, it's not. And there's a difference between talking about it, keeping it a secret, and keeping it private. Right? There are three differences between those three things when you talk about euphemisms and also just like talking about menstruation. Like when people talk to me, they're like, dude, why are you even a menstrual activist? Like, you're kind of forcing people to always want to talk about it, and you're always talking about it. And I say, you don't have to talk about it. I'm not like putting a gun to your head telling you have to say the word menstruation 100% all the time. I'm just saying, well, like, let's not keep it a secret. Like, let's not try and abide to these invisible laws about, menstruation and stuff like that. So yeah, as you know, it's a positive and a negative thing to have euphemisms for it. But I think once we start to use the euphemisms to try and make other people more comfortable, and that word like menstruation shouldn't be said.
Yeah.
It's not something that is positive.
I'm sure Jane would agree. It's important to bring men into the conversation about periods.
100%. Because those men will grow up to be fathers of young girls.
Yeah.
And so what if mommy's not around, like what will they tell their daughters?
Definitely. They'd really benefit from menstrual hygiene education as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course they do, definitely. And I think just adding them into the conversation just this breaks down the stigma. Mm-hmm. It breaks down the stigma when you add men into the conversation. And so I feel like most girls, I think I've experienced this before, they are, when they can't talk to guys about
Very
it.
true.
Yeah. Like their boyfriends or whatever, like, or even their husbands, like they just can't, like they can't talk to guys about it. And whenever like they leak, which is like a very natural, not a natural thing, but I mean, it's sometimes inevitable. It's, then it's like, oh, you leaked, and then it's like gross, and all the guys are like looking and laughing. Like I know there's some, we did a trip once to distribute sanitary pads to this children's home, and this girl tapped me on the back and she was like, what do you do when guys say ew and gross to you? And then I asked her, why are guys saying ew and gross to you? And she says, because sometimes I leak and I don't have sanitary pads to use. And I was like, I took a pause for a second, and I was like, wow, like I was just introspecting, for that second there. And then I just say, well, just know your power, and then just know that we're here to help you, so that, you can always get sanitary pads and you don't have to leak anymore. And so, yeah, that's where it stems from, really.
Yeah.
The guys were telling her that, that she's gross because she's menstruating. It's not how it works, guys. Like, you're not gross because you menstruate. But yeah, definitely, it happens to a lot of women.
Definitely. And I think it's also that when you think about young girls, when you're growing up in high school, around the time that your period starts, that's when you're starting to get really interested in boys. And a boy's opinion of you at that age can really shape how you perceive yourself. So if the boys are out here saying ew, 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 you are obviously going to have a very negative feeling around your period. So I guess what we're trying to say here is that I think men definitely need to act as allies in fighting menstrual stigma. And for them to be allies, it's around education, as you say, Jane.
That's the most important thing, just educating. Just getting to know it. Very important. Had it been those guys or those boys who said that to the girl knew about menstruation, I think they wouldn't. And they knew that their mothers were menstruating, and that's probably how they got into the world. And they would know that, okay, let me hand her a pad. Let me not laugh at her, if you know what I mean, or tell her nicely. Yeah. But yeah.
When women really don't have access to safe sanitary products and have access to hygienic places where they can keep themselves clean and really maintain their dignity, what happened? One thing that I can always say about women is that we're resourceful, but sometimes when you really don't have the things that you think of or the things that you use are just really detrimental to your health. I know in Zimbabwe, cotton wool is something that a lot of, women who are a little bit more privileged may use cotton wool. A lot of women use cotton wool, or not privileged, sorry, who have maybe a little bit of money, which use cotton wool. Others, obviously, who are privileged have access to pads, but then people who can't even buy cotton wool are using towels. They're using newspaper. I'm sure Jane, you've got other examples,
Yeah. Some women use plastic bags.
Plastic bags?
And I think,
how does that work?
Honestly, I don't know. But I think I don't know. I think it's because, plastic bag is waterproof, so it doesn't leak out.
Right.
But it's not a pad. It's not a pad, and it shouldn't be used as one, and it shouldn't be replaced with one, like socks, jeans, like old clothing. And I think the sad part is that most people, it's a very ignored part of, I don't want to say ignored, let me not say ignored.
Silence.
It's a type of woman that it affects, which is homeless women, right? And so those women, they don't have anything. Whatever money they have, they will go and buy food because that's more important. And so expecting them with the little sense that they have to go and always budget for a pack of sanitary pads at the grocery store, it's not a very you can't expect that, right?
No, you can't. Yes.
And honestly, I want to cry, but it touches my heart because these women would have to use like leaves and scraps and things that are like that they find on the floor, and sometimes reuse old clothing and try and find the nearest tap if there is ever like water running to wash it off. And it's so sad, No woman has to feel. No woman should ever feel like that. And
I think about the fact that when a woman goes through her period, that's probably your most vulnerable time. We feel emotional, we are feeling hormonal, so many emotions are going through us, and if you
much pain,
and if you don't have access to the right sanitary products, a safe space to be able to, and hygienic space to be able to keep yourself clean and just your dignity, it's heartbreaking, very, very heartbreaking. And I think that's another thing, because we sort of started talking about the effects of not having access to those things. And it's important to say that period poverty, like not having access, it affects your mental health.
Absolutely.
It affects your mental health. It affects your self-esteem. Yeah. It affects your confidence. And, I think about the times that I haven't had a pad and I've had to use tissue even if it was just for 30 minutes while I run to the shop. Inside myself, I'll be feeling scared. I'll be feeling...
What if it leaks?
I'll be feeling so anxious. And I just, you just won't be feeling yourself. So imagine that feeling for a really long and protracted time. I mean, Tracy, you made the example earlier that you had to use tissue for a couple of days. Right. How did that make you feel? I had to use
tissue, and this was, later on in my life. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I was all those feelings you mentioned, fearful, because I was at school. I'm like, it's not even what if I leak. What if the tissue falls? What am I gonna say?
We laugh, but it's true.
Actually, that was one of my life-defining moments. I felt that was the lowest of the low I'd ever reached, and I made a decision that I'd never find myself in a position where I was so unfinancially unstable to purchase pads. And from then on, I just made sure that never, never, never again. So I can only imagine a woman who doesn't even have that option of saying, this will never happen to me again, because that's that lifestyle.
Yeah. And I mean, you even said tissue. Let's talk about tissue there. Tissue is something you buy at the shops. I think tissue is actually more expensive sometimes than
that's true.
Pads, but it kind of varies though. And so you can't even buy tissue. But if you don't have money to buy pads, of course you can't buy tissue as well, especially in South Africa. So, definitely it's very sad, and it's emotional when you actually sit down and you start to think about it, and you start to like retrospectively think about it, and try to put yourself in their shoes. I think it's the most important thing. That's the only way you can actually learn
empathy.
And visualize yourself there, and you start to have empathy. But as we were talking about the psychology of it, definitely, it impacts a lot on your psychology, because once you start using stuff like rags and things you find on the floor, scraps and stuff like that, I mean, you start to feel like an animal.
Oh wow!
You don't feel human anymore, and so I think it's sad. That's definitely something that plays on, and it plays on your confidence, definitely, and try to pick yourself up. I mean, most of the things, the period poverty mostly happens to homeless women. I mean, they're normally the first group of people that are affected. And so these people are vulnerable, as we said, even though when they're not on their periods, when they are on their periods, they're vulnerable, exposed, and even the mere fact that they're on the street is just a confidence
killer. Demoralizer.
What's a killer? Yes, confidence. Yeah, demoralizer. And so now when it's time for menstruation, it's far worse. And you find women doing horrible things that they thought they would never do for sanitary pads. I think this happened in Kenya. There were women who are selling their bodies for...
God.
I'm not even lying, for sanitary pads. They are selling their bodies out of, not even for free will.
Wow.
Some women are becoming drug addicts because of it. They are becoming drug moles because of it.
Wow. And this is...
going into crime and stuff like that. So yeah, it happens.
Gosh, and this naturally leads us into the conversation about empowerment. And it's just like about women being empowered to have the skills, the knowledge, and the tools that they need to be able to make their own income.
Yeah,
and be able,
very important.
And that's like a really big thing, that a lot of women who are experiencing period poverty, some of them don't even have a way to sustain themselves or to live or to look after them.
Yeah.
They don't have a livelihood.
Yeah, and an income as well, where they could make money and be empowered. Definitely, it all boils down to that. And I think that's also going back to once a month, that's one of the pillars of once a month, or like the missions of once a month. So once a month, our missions are to empower women and girls economically, to end period poverty and menstrual stigma, and then to elevate women healthcare.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a very important part. All those three kind of mash up and they connect with each other. When a woman is educated about her health and properly educated about menstruation, she'll be able to, be empowered almost in a way.
Yeah.
And then once she's empowered, she can learn about her health and she can afford menstrual products. And once she can afford menstrual products, she can then be empowered, and it all kind of works together, those three missions. And going back to your question that you asked me, definitely, it wasn't really a question, was it? No, but financial empowerment is absolutely important, because once you can earn a living and you're stable and everything, you can definitely afford sanitary pads. I mean, it correlates. If you have a need and if you have money and you have a need, you use the money to buy the need. So yeah, definitely important.
Gosh, definitely. Yeah. Absolutely. Gosh, there's so much to explore with this topic, but one thing that I really wanted us to just acknowledge for a second is the fact that we are going through this crazy pandemic with COVID-19 or coronavirus. And
came out of nowhere.
Came out of nowhere, you guys. Like nobody, like 2020 is cancelled. Like that's, for me, 2020 just
I refuse.
is happening,
2021 was going to be a year.
Yeah, I mean, hey, 2020 can be our year too, but like, we can make it happen from home. But like, we're now stuck in this crazy loop, and I'm so conscious that one of the effects of COVID-19 is that like people are going to lose their livelihoods. People are people are not going to have as much money as they do. Priorities in households are going to change, and
jobs, job insecurity.
So many things are going to happen. And one of the things that or priorities that are going to fall to the very bottom of the priority list is periods and things like sanitary products and that kind of stuff. Jane, I don't know what's your view on this. Like, what's the impact of COVID-19 on periods, on women in particular?
I think it has obviously a negative impact, definitely on, of course, as you said, the decisions now households have to start to make, because most people are now out of job or not earning anything because they can't go to work and stuff like that. So I think it's positive and negative, but the positives, it's more of like enlightening. So now people can actually start to put themselves in their shoes, literally put themselves in the shoes of the women who are experiencing this on a daily basis with or without a pandemic, literally, and actually start to see how it feels like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And honestly, I don't wish period poverty upon anyone, honestly, because it's the worst thing to go through as a woman. And I'm just, I think it's an eye-opener. It's
a massive
eye-opener. Say about it, yeah.
And I know, Jane, when we were talking the other day, I sort of said to you that when everything started and we were all running to supermarkets to stock up, terrible thing to do, people, but people did, to stock up and stuff. The last thing people thought about, and I think a lot of people didn't really think about it, was about like tampons and pads. And I'm sure there's some women who sort of like stocks up on them, but then when I went out, I was thinking about food and that kind of stuff, but I didn't really stock up on it. And it was only later on that I was sort of thinking that, oh crap, wait a minute, what are we going to do for my period this month? I think my supplies are running low. And I had this genuine feeling of worry that, guys, what's going to happen if I can't buy tampons? What's going to happen if tampons and pads aren't easily accessible? And I think a lot of women can probably relate to this feeling.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be, I think like, COVID-19, it's not like, I was going to say it's going to be a great equalizer, but no, it's not an equalizer. But what it is going to make people stop.
A humbling moment.
A humbling moment. Yes, that's it. It's going
definitely
to be
true. Yeah. That's the word for it.
Yeah, it's a real humbling moment. And I saw something on your Instagram, Jane, that said, periods don't stop for pandemics.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They happen with or without pandemics. And, it's something we should all focus on.
Yeah. And at this moment, I just want to take a second to just shout out what Jane's doing. Absolutely incredible. Shout out once a month. This is so important, guys. And we need to be talking about this. We need to be having this conversation. There is so much more that we can say about it, but we just don't have the time. But this is something that we should constantly talk about. And one thing that I want to definitely highlight is that Jane is a young woman. It's a young woman who saw a problem in her community, and instead of being apathetic and sitting back and just watching it happen, she decided to do something. So we really want to commend you, Jane, and say that, thank you so much. Well done. And I know this is something that you're passionate about as well, around young people standing up in their communities and being the change that they want to see.
Definitely. And young people is that very important. Young people, young leaders. We all need to, I think we need to start investing in it. So for instance, I'm young, I'm 17. I started this when I was 15. And I started to actually pay attention to this, I think 2 years ago, as I said. No, in 2015, I started to pay attention. 2017. Because we're in 2020. So 2017, I actually started to see this, and I was 15 at the time. I'm turning 18 this year, but I'm 17. And so, I would have started it when I was 15. I mean, I had all the resources at the time. I could start a nonprofit. I had my family. I had people who would be interested that I could approach. But I couldn't start it because of my mindset at the time. And I was like, I'm too young. I'm just 15. I can't do this. I can't kickstart it, and I can't do anything about it. And I just need to hand it over to someone else who's older than me to do it. Right? That was my mentality at the time.
I was like, you're like, who's going to listen to this young girl? I need to leave this to the adults.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think it's very sad, and it's a reality that most young people kind of think about. The future generation are young people. Like these old people, they're gonna die. They're gonna leave this world for us, and we need to start to develop. we need to start to develop that attitude. That we need to start looking for things in the world that we can try and change. And I feel like most people, they just don't know how to do it. I think that's the most important part. They can't do it. They like, no one is teaching them how to be leaders, how to have use your voice, how to develop your voice in the world and in society, and to actually look for the things. There's so many things happening, but no one really, like, let's say for instance, rallying for climate change is different from rallying for education. You know what I mean? And so there's so many different parts that you can help out, but you just don't know how to start it. And most of the people that you see starting these things are older people. And that's why I so much admire Greta and Nadia Okamoto. And they're both very young people. And when they started the movements that they're, that they founded, they were very young. And I think Nadia, she's founder of the Menstrual movement. She really inspired me, because then she was young when she started something similar to what Once a Month is. And I think once we have more people who are young and are making change in the world, young people will definitely look up to them and be inspired by them, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think it's absolutely important.
Wow, 100%. Wow. I didn't realize you're 17, Jane. This is even more so freaking inspirational. I'm so inspired by you. I'm sure of you. And
thank you.
Please continue to do what you're doing. Young people, here's an example. Here's your peer. If you see a problem in your community, don't just sit back and do nothing. Act on it, reach out to your networks, make something happen, and you can absolutely make that thing happen. So wow. I mean, hey guys, to wrap up this incredible conversation that we've had, I just want to one more time just reiterate that the definition for period poverty is the lack of access to sanitary products, menstrual hygiene education, toilets, hand washing facilities, and waste management.
Yeah.
We need to break the harmful stigmas that currently exist around menstruation. Education is key, and this is education for both girls and boys, because period poverty is something that affects us all. We need to...
Yeah, it's a human issue.
It's a human issue, like Jane says, and we need to promote safe sanitation. Guys, want to encourage you to go onto Jane's website, rather Once a Month's website. Jane, what is it?
www.onceamonth.co.za.
We will link to that in the bio. Please follow Once a Month on Instagram. And are you on any other social media platforms, Jane?
We're on Facebook.
Oh,
on Facebook. Once a Month ZA.
Once a Month ZA on Facebook, and also and Instagram. But yeah, Jane, I just want to say a massive thank you for reaching out to us, and
thank you for having me.
I mean, it's so good to have this conversation. Tracy, do you feel educated?
I'm sure. I'm sure that I left this conversation enlightened and humbled, and also proud. I don't know you, girl, but I'm proud of you for the steps that you're taking, and you have really opened my eyes, and I hope the listeners have learned something too, and we will definitely be following you. What can people do to promote, what assistance do you need?
Okay, so basically we're trying to, of course we can't really go out and distribute and everything, so we were planning on trying to help out people who unfortunately have been out of work, especially women who are out of work during this crisis. And we want to just send sanitary pads to 3 of the townships in the Gauteng area. So Alexandra, Deep Sluit, and Yeovil. So basically, it will go to homes and shelters, like main big homes in Alexandra, Deep Sluit, and Yeovil. And then any woman who, unfortunately, is experiencing or is affected by period poverty during this time, especially, can then just go to the homes and ask for sanitary pads, and they will be given sanitary pads. And so I would just really love if anyone who's listening can just help out with this. You'll learn more about it on our page, on our website, on how to give, so that we can do this together. Let's get sanitary pads to townships. 100%. It can only happen if everyone, joins hands together to help those who are in need. So yeah.
I mean, yeah, 100%. And Jane's being polite, but for me as a fundraiser, what Jane is saying to you is that donate, people, for once a month to be able to reach as many women as possible during this crazy coronavirus pandemic. We need your donations to be able to make it happen. Please go on to onceamonth.co.za/donate to make a donation. When you get on a page, there's an amazing quote that says giving is not just about donation, it's about making a difference. So guys, 100%. This is your call to action. Make a difference. Visit onceamonth.co.za/donate to make a donation to Once a Month.
Yes.
We are going to put the link to the donate page in the description, and you can follow Jane on all the platforms that we mentioned earlier. And once a month, this is important.
We're planning a conference. It's called a Women Conference, Women with an X. And it's the first we've ever done. It's happening on Zoom. And we're getting some international and professional experts to talk about women health. So talking about menstrual health, relationship sexual health, mental health, medical health, and gender-based violence. So it's a 6-day event. It's happening, kickstarting on the 27th of April. So,
Incredible.
That's something you can definitely check out on our website if you would like to be interested or just to know more about it. Of course, 100% of those funds are also going to, for this project that we're trying to do with the COVID-19 to the 3 townships. So yeah, if you're also interested in that and if you want to gain something and also donate, definitely be at the conference.
Hey. Amazing. You heard it here, guys. Wow.
One last thing. Okay, so when we were talking about the young leaders and making a change, I just want to say that I am writing a book for that. It's called Change Makers Unite. It's just a step-by-step guide on how to, put your voice out there, register a nonprofit, become an activist, or, just start a social enterprise or something that you can do to make, create something that actually makes a difference. You know what I mean?
Oh, amazing.
And just to educate young people on how to, do these things. So the book is probably coming out in about, I want to say September. Pre-orders in September. So
brilliant.
If anyone's interested to learn how to be, to make change as a young person in South Africa, definitely this is a book you should get.
Incredible. Yeah, that's amazing, girl. Oh wow. And I know you say this is for young people, but if my 29-year-old ass is
I'm getting a copy
because I want to
definitely because anyone's gonna benefit.
I want to make a difference too. But yeah, okay guys. So if that's Tracy, did you have anything else?
Nah, girl, I'm on the website right now. I'm trying to see what I can do to make a difference.
I know. We will be donating. But yeah, guys. Okay, guys, let's sign off if there's nothing else. But yeah, once again, Jane, thank you so much for joining us. People, donate, go on to Once a Month social media pages and follow and really join in the conversation. Guys, we'd really love to hear your stories around periods and your thoughts around the conversation that we've had today. You can listen to the podcast on Anchor FM and on Spotify and YouTube. Please follow Hey Sis, I Need to Vent on Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks once again for joining us. Thank you to Jane. Until next time, bye-bye.